I think that the earth and nature as we see it gives us clues, gives us insights into the nature of the entire universe, what is actually happening beyond the veil for which our senses can perceive. And I think that this takes many, many shapes, but today let's just talk about the ocean. I think the ocean gives some clues to the actual nature of the universe. So one thing about the ocean that's interesting to me is you can pluck a single drop of water out of it, and you can drop a single drop of water back into it, and then the question becomes, what is that raindrop? Or what is that drop of water? Is it a part of the ocean, and then when it goes back into it, what becomes of it? Does it no longer exist? Does it exist in some other kind of way? Does it have any sense of individuality, if you will? Or is it somehow able to fluctuate and vacillate from a part of everything, which is the ocean, or a thing unto itself, which is this single drop of water? And I think that there's a lot to be said here for what that means when we feel that we are individual beings or individual creatures, or we see other creatures in this world, and every day new ones are born and every day other ones die. And what does that mean in terms of the drop of water? Does it die when it goes back into the ocean? I would say it probably does, but what does that mean? It ceases to be that single drop of water that we could sort of visualize, and maybe we could even sort of articulate it in a bowl or in a glass or something. And if you are to take out another drop of water, is that the same drop of water that was once put back into the ocean? Or is it sort of an amalgamation of other pieces and molecules and parts of the water that come together that form essentially a drop of water, sort of like any other drop of water, but it's one distinct and unto itself? And it exists and it's real, but then when you put it back in the ocean, the question is, what becomes of it? So I think this is one small piece of how the ocean and water acts to sort of give clues to the reality of the universe. Another one is the cycle, and this we'll explore as we talk about other ways in which I think the world and nature clue us into the realities of the universe. But let's just talk about the cycle of what happens with water. And I'm sure from a scientific perspective I will miss pieces of this, but I think you will get the overall gist of what I'm trying to say here. So you think of the sun beating down on the ocean, and some of that ocean water evaporating, so changing into something else, or taking at least another form, and working its way up into the atmosphere, and then eventually sort of possibly condensing into something yet again different, forming a cloud of some sort. And then maybe as the geography changes, or as the weight of that cloud gets to a certain point, then a single drop of rain or a single drop of water escapes from there. So something comes together that's in that cloud and forms yet again something that appears and looks and feels slightly different into a particular drop of water. Falls from that cloud, tumbles from the sky all the way down, and who knows? There's a lot of the earth that's covered by the ocean. Maybe it falls right back into the ocean. And then our question once again becomes, so what happens to that drop of water? Or maybe it falls on land somewhere, or in a river or in a stream somewhere. And then the question becomes, so it's on a journey now, right? But it's on a journey, and depending on exactly what happened to it, if it fell into a river or a stream or some other body of water, and it's on this journey now, it's traveling, did it just dissolve into that and now it is that? Is there any recollection or any resemblance of it being that singular drop that it had become? And if it falls into land, then we have a whole other journey that it's going to take, and a whole other question as it's maybe absorbed into the ground. But as it's absorbed into the ground, is it absorbed as one thing? Is it broken up into many different things in the sense of then it no longer exists as a singular unit? And then maybe it's sucked up by a tree, by the roots of a tree or a flower. Or maybe it's fallen into something whereby it's drunk by an animal or a human. And in these ways, it's on this spectacular journey. And eventually, it's returning in some way, shape, or form to the ocean, potentially. And be that by its journey leads its way down through lower and lower elevations until some stream or outlet eventually rushes in back into the ocean. Or is it in a pond, or is it somehow now the morning dew that's once again absorbed into the atmosphere and goes through this cycle again in a cloud and traveling through the air and through the sky in a cloud and then reforming into a drop. And again, when it's reforming into a drop, is it reforming into that same drop? Is that like a soul as it's often perpetrated, spoken of in the Western world? This thing that kind of travels on and remains and takes different forms, but essentially the essence is the same? Or is this something new that's becoming over and over and over again? And shifting forms and, again, always sort of on some type of grand adventure, right? Some great journey. And so, in these ways, I think the ocean gives us very strong clues into what's happening in the universe. And I will pose one other. And one other is the idea of a wave in the ocean. Now, a wave, I think, influences the perspective of what could be happening in the overall universe in a couple of different ways. One, I think there's an obviating of the wave as something, showing us that it's something that the entirety of the ocean is doing. So it's making obvious that the entirety of the ocean is moving, working its way in some undulation, some form of movement, in order to create this one little wave, or maybe this one grand wave. But to some degree, or to some extent, there's some motion, some movement, some sway that the entire ocean is taking some part in order to make reality every wave. And then the other thing is, and so that's one thing. It's a symptom of something that everything is doing, that the entire thing is doing together. And then the other thing is, if you think sort of like that drop of water, of the wave as something unto itself, something that is briefly in existence, and it rises up maybe large and powerful, and then crashes down with a bang, and then what? And then there is no more wave? There is still a wave, but it is somehow sort of hidden from view at this point. And so there's again this sort of reality of the entirety of the ocean moving to create something that we can experience as a wave, and then with a lot of vim and vigor, or a lot of bluster at points, crashing that back into itself and taking it back, reclaiming it. And it then, once again, in a way, disappearing from our experience. We cannot experience that wave again. It's, as far as we can tell, gone back into the ocean. But what does that mean? That it's gone? Is it really gone? Or if it's gone back into the ocean, is it going to then reform as another wave down the road? And if so, what do those things mean as it pertains to the overall nature and reality of the universe? Again, people die every day, and new people are born every day. And what clues do different elements of nature give us to the true reality of the universe and what it's doing?